Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Carol here at Oak House Journals, and I thought I would just do a very quick update or another update on how I'm getting on with my journal of stitchery, the garden themed one. And if you haven't been watching my channel, it is the same project that Rachel and Sarah of Roxy Creations have been doing, except mine went off at a bit of a tangent when they were doing their first journal of stitchery, and I split mine into two, a blue themed journal and also a garden themed journal. Roxy and Sarah are now on to their second journal of stitchery, and I'm still plodding on with my first volume. So anyway, enough of that. I just thought I would give you a little bit of an update, and this is probably the last page that you saw me do, and I call this the Rose Arch for want of a better name to call it. And I then started working, and you saw me paint the background for its opposite page in the actual journal itself. And I was painting the background, hopefully to get it to pick up the same hints of blue in its sister page here. And then I set to and started embroidering, and my idea was that they would, even though they're going to be on opposite pages, that it almost looked like a continuation of the same theme or image. Now, if you want to see a little bit of stitching on this page, then I will show that at the end of the video or at the end of the update, along with some close-up photos. So if you're interested in actually seeing stitching, which I know some of you are, then hang around for the end of the video. As you can see, they are pretty similar. I tried to pick out the same colours in the border here to do some of the same sort of plants. These grey ones down here, I kind of think of those as the black grasses that I have in the garden here, and so I've tried to pick up some of those in amongst these down here. I've got gypsophilia there, I've done some more there, I've done sort of oxeye daisy style flowers up here, and I've tried to mimic them down there. This one I intended to be more of a clematis plant rambling over the arch. But here, as you can see, I've gone in for some little roses, but tried to entwine them over the bird table. Very much the same sort of stitching. I've gone in with French knots here and here, blanket stitch, split back stitch, and I've done the same sort of running stitch down here to mimic the path. And as you can see, I've gone in again with some more shading. So as I say, some photos at the end so that you can see that one, but I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. I think I would like to go in and do a bit more on the background with my paints. It's not dark enough. You are probably not seeing it at all on camera. For me, it is incredibly light, so as I say, you're probably not picking up anything at all. In retrospect, I wouldn't have used for these flowers here, and God alone knows what they're supposed to be, but anyway, these flowers here, I probably would have gone in with a variegated pink. The pink I've used is a very flat pink, so it tends to be pretty dominant in the overall image, really, and I'm not too happy with it. I can live with that. I'm certainly not going to unpick them, that's for sure. So that's the opposite page for this one. Then I moved on, and you would have seen this one. Now, I think I painted the background on camera at the same time as I did the previous one, and again, it's come out very, very light. It often does when it dries, and I tend to go in very, very light anyway, because it's easier to add to than it is to take away, as we always say. Loved doing this one. It came together really quickly. I thought the bike was going to be difficult, but it wasn't. I did it in split back stitch. And similarly for the basket here, the saddle, I tried to pick up the same green as on the shutters, and I did that in a satin stitch. And that's about it, really. These little leaves down here are lazy daisy stitch, or sometimes known as single detached chain stitch. My hollyhocks are a blanket stitch. This is just a loopy French knot where you, instead of pulling your French knot tight, I leave it loopy, pull it through. And then spiders, wheels, or whip circles, as these little roses are sometimes called. Loads and loads of little French knots. I'm really pleased how this one came out. I've shaded underneath what I hope looks like rough grass just to anchor the bite, because there wasn't anything there originally and it all looked like it was floating in the air. So after I did the grasses with, I think it was 3 or 4 shades of green DMC thread, I decided to put a bit of shading underneath, same as I did here for the pathway, with my Derwent coloured pencils. Not liking really how it looks, so I might go in with some simple running stitch underneath here as well, same as I've done on the path, and just try and blend it in a little bit better. So that's how that one looks. This one actually hasn't got a sister page as yet. I do have a rough idea what I'm going to do with it though. I thought that I would do another window to mimic this one with the same sort of arrangement underneath, but instead of have a bicycle on that one, maybe have something like a flower pot picking up these hydrangeas, something like that, because I really enjoy doing these. So I might do something like that underneath the window, still picking out the same colours so it would work with the hollyhocks. Or I might just do something like a watering can, and then have maybe something in the watering can. I don't know. I haven't drafted out or drawn out that design as yet, but that's the sort of thing I'm thinking of. And again, I really enjoyed doing this idea for on the windowsill in sort of like a window box idea. So it'd be nice if I could replicate that. And actually what I should have done, as I was stitching this, I should have done something the same on its sister page, because what I found with this one, because there was a gap of months between them, when it came down to remembering what threads I've used and trying to match them up in amongst those that I have, I found it a bit of a struggle. Whereas here with these, if I'd done it at the same time, it would have been easier, but I haven't. So let's hope I can match those up pretty easily when the time comes. But as I say, that's the idea that I've got for the sister page for this one. This is what I'm working on now. As you can see, I've got my threads in there. Very much similar to the wisteria page I did in terms of the little bistro picnic set. I haven't really got very far with this one. You probably can't tell, but I've actually done the metal work on the chairs, the 2 chairs and the table. And because I wanted a bit of a break from split back stitch, which is what I've used for these, I've gone in with some stem stitch on these frondy pieces here. Now these are going to mimic wild roses, and I'm hoping that I can pick them up in lemons and creams. Instead of doing a straw coloured base for the chairs and the table, I'm thinking I might pick up a soft colour and do something like a pale blue, something like that, and hopefully I can pick that up in this trellis work here, which is supposed to be a trellis on a wall, because I'd like this to look a bit French shabby chic so that it comes out looking bluey cream. I can just envisage this with lots of paint peeling off and that sort of thing. Now, I'm not going to be able to replicate that by any means, but if I can pick it up in the colours, then I'll be happy with that. And as I say, if I can pick up some of the blues in that from here, then I'll be happy with it. But I haven't started working those bases yet, or the tabletop in that colour, because I wanted to see how this would look and then try auditioning my colours next to the vegetation to see if it is going to work. So anyway, that's where I've got to so far. I will carry on with this page, and I will try and pop back with a little update on this page before it's finished, but I find it very hard. I get going with these, really enjoy doing it, and I don't want to stop to video. I just want to carry on. Plus also I do most of my sewing at night in the evening, so the light isn't particularly good for actually recording a video for you. Okay everybody, everybody. I hope you enjoyed seeing where I'm at with these pieces, or with my garden themed journal of stitchery. As I say, if you're interested in watching me do a little bit of stitching in the early days on, where are we? Can't find it now. On this one, then please stay with me, and as I say, pictures at the end. Until the next video, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye now. So now I'm going to go in with my threads, and I'm going to pick out a brown out of my embroidery threads here, and I'm just using what I always use, which is stranded cotton. I prefer DMC, but Anchor or any other make is just as good. I'm going to try and pick up the same colour tones that I've used down here for my bird table, so that it's going to marry in together with this page. And I'm just going to go in with split back stitch. So I'm going to get started with that, and I will be back when I've done a little bit so that you can see how it's going, and I'll do a little bit of stitching with you. Okay, see you soon. So I've started doing my stem to my birdhouse or bird table, and I'm working in one thread of the 610 and 611. And as I've mentioned, I'm working in split back stitch, and I've got a little catch there. There we go. So I've pulled the camera down, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to see what I'm doing. I've already done 2 rows of split back stitch, so I'm working my 3rd one now, and I might have to actually go in with a 4th row, but we'll see. So I'm just trying to keep my stitches very close together, using this left hand thumb here to kind of guide where I want my stitches to be. And I'm trying to, as I say, just come in as close as I can to the previous row of stitches. And I'm taking a stitch that is about 5mm, but I'm not too bothered about the regularity of the stitches, because this is supposed to represent wood, and wood's not even, or unplaned wood isn't even. So I think it just adds to the look of the piece. But even though my stitches are not regular, I'm not allowing them to be too irregular. So just slight variations. Obviously, with split back stitch, you come up slightly before your last stitch. And that's a little bit too far over. So yeah, you come up in front of your last stitch, and then you go down at some point in that stitch. And again, I'm not bothered whether I'm going down exactly halfway through my last stitch. Sometimes I'm doing that, sometimes I'm taking less, or making less of a stitch. And split back stitch is very, very forgiving. And I actually love doing it, really. It works really well for something like this. If you're not actually managing to keep particularly straight, it's not too bad, because you can go in and fill up the gaps at a later stage. So I'm just going to carry on working this up to the top of my pole. And as you can see at the bottom, I've gone just inside the line, but as I've been working up, I've obviously not been paying too much attention and I've got a bigger gap. So I'm just going to go back down and fill in those gaps. And I usually like to turn my work round when I'm working back, but I'm not going to do that today. Just because I don't want to. No other reason. And I'm not quite happy about this section from there down to here. It's still not looking smooth enough, so I'm just going to go in and put a few more stitches along the side there, just to try and even it up a little bit. So there we go. I think I'm more or less happy with how that looks. That bit's looking a little bit wide there, but I can live with that. And obviously I've gone over, taken my pole over the top of my design for these flowers here, but I will work those over the top to try and give a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to end off my thread now, and I'm just going to carry on doing a couple of lines down here and then along the bottom, and I'll be back when that's done. I've worked a couple of just straight stitches for the sides of my bird table, and similarly along the bottom here, but what I did once I did the straight stitch, I whipped it with the same thread. So now I'm working on the little roof, and I thought it would be nice to almost make it look as if it was a thatch roof. So I'm working with this DMC thread, and it's 672, and again, as you can see, I'm working with 2 strands. And to do this, all I'm doing is a blanket stitch. I was thinking about working this one in split back stitch, but I think this will give a nice finish to the roof, and it's a stitch that Lorna Bateman in her Country Gardens embroidery book suggested to do for the roof. So I thought I would follow suit. It's a lovely stitch to do. So all I'm doing for this is obviously picking up the bottom line, trying to angle my stitches a little bit here from the roof down to the edges, and taking my time really. So I'm just going to pull that one a little bit tighter. And I'm hoping you're going to see enough of what I'm doing. snip that end off. Okay, so I'm going to just work that with my fingers and smooth it out a little bit. Probably won't do a little bird or anything in there. I'm probably just going to leave it as it is. But what I will do now is go in with some of the greenery down here. I'm going to do those running stitches probably at the end. But yeah, I just want to go in with some greenery, and I love doing these ones, so I'm going to go in and do those next. So I'll choose some green that I can do those with, and as I say, I'll be back. I've chosen a shade of green for these stems, and all I've done is stem stitch up to the little bud area at the top, and then just single little straight stitches on either side to create the leaves. So I'm just going to complete the last one. So again, tiny little stitches, just picking up a couple of threads. I'm not even going to or going through to the back. I'm just picking up the top fabric, because if you remember, I mentioned that I had backed this piece with another piece of fabric. So let me flip that over. There's the backing fabric on the back, and it's just held together with some Bonder web. But obviously the stitches, not necessarily with this particular line of stitches, but the other stitches, such as up here, will go through both layers. This one is only going through the top layer. So I'm picking up a couple of the threads from this top layer of fabric, just to do a very delicate, or as delicate as I can get it, line of stem stitch. Whoopsie daisy, caught the edge there. And I usually try and do bigger stitches at the base down here, and as I get closer to the top, try and get my stitches closer together. So there we go, that's my line of stem stitch for that. And then if I just flip it around a little bit, just tiny little straight stitches coming down on either side into my stem. And again, I'm using my thumbnail on this left hand side because I'm I'm right-handed, just to guide where I want my needle to be. There we go. Another little stitch. I'm trying to tuck the end of the stitch underneath my row of stem stitches. So look, I'm just tucking it underneath. I could equally go over the top if I wanted to, but it just feels a little bit easier going underneath and just pushing those stem stitches over to one side as I go. And true to form, you end up with invariably one of these little knots along the way. They generally just pull out like that. I'll push my stitches to one side, another one on the other side. So they're really tiny, these little straight stitches, just enough to add a little bit of interest on either side. So again, pushing my stem stitch to one side and coming in with the last two. So that's one. Oops, daisy. Pushing my stem stitches over. That's my second one coming in. Or the end of my first stitch rather, sorry. This is my second stitch. And again, tucking under. It we go. So that's that one done. I'm going to come down to the bottom here, and I'm just going to do some of these stitches. Now, I really should be trying to do some of these in a different colour of green or a different shade of green, but a few of them I'm going to mix in with this thread just to use it up. I'm going to anchor that last stitch I did, because to go straight across to the next stitch is quite a travel in terms of the thread, and if you're not careful it can sometimes pull. So there we go. So that's, I really should snip that off as well, but I've not got my scissors handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do these, actually not that one, because that's part of the little kind of purple grasses that I want to do. So I'm going to do a little one down there, and then maybe some of these here. Just again, single straight stitch, really easy stitches, couldn't be easier to do, but they all add interest to your piece. So back up to this one here, and that one's not quite centered on the design. That's better. And down to this bottom stitch down here, and another one down in here. Whoops-a-daisy. I'm going to do another little one down in here. And then I'm going to leave it there, because these are a different, these are going to be daisies. So I want the actual greenery for these daisies here to be different in terms of colour from these. So let's finish off this thread at the back. Like so. I haven't got my embroidery scissors to hand, so I'm just going to snip that one off there.